DVDs, they have those extra features and things like that. One of the things that was really interesting when I was watching this is how actively engaged every person in that production meeting was. All right. When you see these production meeting videos, you don't see people sitting in the back sipping on coffee or sitting in the background talking. They're quite literally focused on what's being discussed. And if anybody's seen the credits on a lot of these animated movies, it ain't 20 people that worked on it. There's hundreds of people that worked on it. And the way that works is everybody has to be kind of working off the same program, the same script, the same understanding of what the goal is, what the movie's about, that kind of thing like that. One of the things that I want to try to emphasize to you is that you need to start thumbnailing. How many of y'all understand the concept of thumbnailing your ideas? Okay? All right. We need to get in the practice, especially in a group setting, to thumbnail your ideas out and to thumbnail your understanding of what the project is about. What I want you to do is take a look at your handout, and we're going to talk about why thumbnail designs are so important.
Okay, one other thing in there too. When you guys hear Mr. Neeld say thumbnailing, my class, that's the equivalent of the storyboard page that we use. You know the page with the little boxes on them? That's the equivalent, it's the same thing, okay? When you hear him say thumbnail, think of those little storyboard pages we use.
Okay, thumbnails are important because it's the beginning place for brainstorming ideas that will branch off into the initial concept into something that's brilliant. All right. Thumbnails provide direction for creating the message when we're communicating to our audience. Thumbnails provide immediate feedback within a group. All right. Is this what you're talking about? You sketch it out. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Do it this way. All right. Because I guarantee you, if I asked everybody to draw me a picture of a tree, I would get 40 different trees. They all might be a tree, but it'll be 40 different renderings of a tree. And the thing is, we work at a creative group setting, and everybody has to have the focus. And like I said, a lot of times you'll see in these movies and stuff, they make statues, they make drawings, they make thumbnails. Everybody knows what the characters look like. Everybody knows the personality of the characters. And then the whole concept is built around that. And that doesn't just happen. It starts with a thumbnail. Somebody sits down and says, I got a great idea. All right? Now, what I'd like to see in my students, and maybe even Mr. Pullen's students, is when we go over some of these underlying structures of the movie, maybe you start using those underlying structures in your thumbnail. All right? And hopefully that'll make a little bit more sense to you as we get done with this. Okay? All right? Everybody got something to write with? All right? And again, don't have to be an amazing illustrator to create thumbnails. Again, you won't be judged on your illustrations. You'll be judged on your creative message. All right? I'd like for you to take a minute or two. See those boxes I've created for you? I want you to thumbnail an idea, and I'm going to walk around. Mr. Pullen's going to walk around. We're going to take a look at some illustrations that y'all have done with the simple ideas of fire or ice, friend or foe, childlike or scary. And I want you to draw me a dragon, and it's either going to be fire and ice, friend or foe, or childlike versus scary. And I just want you to thumbnail out those simple ideas in a thumbnail. So draw a dragon. Draw a dragon. Now, that's the question. Draw a dragon. Is it going to be fire or ice? All right. If it's ice, what do you think you would have in your drawings? Maybe blue, but you'd have ice crystals. All right, or you might have scales that are not real sharp like flames and elongated like flames. They might be look like more rounded. All right. Like scary. Scary. If you drew a dragon with great big childlike eyes, all right, that's not scary. But if you draw it with pointy eyes and slits for iris, that's a little scarier, right?
So I just draw one, just one of them, one of those.
Just draw a series of them. Just draw a series of them.
Do one at a time. Just do one at a time in the box.
And what you're doing right now, that's called brainstorming. You're trying to figure out what I'm looking for, and I'm trying to explain to you what I'm looking for. And that's exactly what thumbnailing's all about. You ask questions, I give answers. I ask you questions, you give me answers. That's what we're looking for. Okay? So, fire or ice, friend or foe, childlike or scary. And again, I'm going to kind of walk around and take a look. And if you have any questions.
Well, you know, that's a good question. He said dragons have legs, right? If you think in the context of a filmmaker, are you showing the whole dragon? Are you showing just his head? Does that make sense? So it depends on what shot or what part of the concept you're choosing to show. Yeah, depending, right, exactly, like that up there. That scene there for doing that, if that was a mini thumbnail, you would know there's just a part of a dragon in your shot. Not a whole lot of detail, not a whole lot of scales, not a whole lot. It's shape, 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 shape. That's what you're looking for. It's 6 seconds above a stick figure, but enough of it to say, hey, there's this big looming shape in there that's coming that way. That's what your drawing needs to say. Some of you are drawing away really, 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 really detailed, really, really fast. Some of you kind of being very, very selective in your lines. Both processes are okay. Think of what you're doing right now is you are writing with pictures. You're doing writing notes with pictures, and everybody writes different.
She's got a nice idea over here. We were talking about her dragon's eyes. Oh, I'm embarrassing you here? All right. If you drew the dragon's eyes like ice crystals, like the iris itself was like an ice crystal with blue and silver and looked like almost a snowflake, that would be kind of cool. That sure would make your design look a little different, right? See, that's what thumbnail. Yeah, I kind of like that. He literally has two dragons butting heads, one fire, one ice, and that's kind of a neat concept, you know, having it actually butting heads like that. That's literally taking, you know, friend or foe or childlike or scary. He's got a baby dragon that's being terrified by an adult evil dragon. Yeah, it can be, but that might be the scene. Reminds you of your childhood. Right.
That was so edgy.
At least you're eating, right?
Yes.
It's strictly for the creativity of it. It's not. You're not looking for detailed sketches. You're not looking for now. Personally, well, don't. To draw things in detail like that takes time, and that slows down the creative process. And I find out that people that try to draw very detailed thumbnails spend more time focused on the thumbnail than the creativity that the thumbnail is supposed to create. So.
Some people who do the detailed stuff, when you're looking to expand the idea, and that's why there's so many people involved in making a movie, you might be the person that takes your thumbnails and makes the storyboards, which are the bigger drawings. If you go to some schools, there's a 4-year degree major in just doing those sequential art pictures. Yes, the same person who does the storyboards for a movie, it could be the person who does the poster for the movie, or who does the comic book illustrations for it, or does a comic book illustration or novel illustration. It's the same art major. So yeah, if you're inclined to doing more details, that could be the person that's doing that.
How many of y'all seen the movie Kung Fu Panda 2? All right. Did you know the guy that directed that graduated from Glen Academy? No, I'm not lying. From GA. He graduated from GA. No, he did not go to GICA. Here's what happened. His father works over there at the airport over on St. Simon's Island, and he came down here one day to get a project working on. He was like a member of Booster Club or something like that, and he goes, "My son's in town," and I was like, "Okay, your son's in town." I mean, you know, and he goes, "Well, you don't know who my son is?" And I said, "I'm afraid I do not." And he goes, "My son directed Kung Fu Panda 2." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, he said, he graduated from Glen Academy. And I was like, "Really?" And what happened is he went off and got a English degree, decided that English major was not going to pay the bills now. So what he decided to do is focus on what he wanted to do for a living. So he ended up going to SCAD, taking the sequential art program, was hired as an intern for the Panda 1 movie, Kung Fu Panda, and they would sit in meetings and talk about the changes to the script and changes to the scenes, and his job was to reconceptualize thumbnail-wise and then redraw the changes and then have them posted by the next production meeting the next day. And they liked the way his images moved within the frame. They liked it. So what happened is they asked him to direct a scene in the first movie, and then they liked that so much that they asked him to direct the second movie. So don't think that just because you're from Glenn County, Georgia, that you can obtain those kind of goals in life. All right? Okay? All right. You just got to believe in yourself. Okay? You just got to believe in yourself. Okay? I would hope by now most people have gotten through at least 3 or 4 of these thumbnails.
I'm on my last 5. I got 1 box.
On your last one.
How many? Raise your hand if you've got at least 3. Raise your hand if you've got at least 3. Okay. Okay.
All right. I'm going to let you kind of continue working on those thumbnails. But we're going to go ahead and continue with the PowerPoint. All right. We're going to talk about the term elements. All right. Now, I'm not sure if Mr. Pullen's class uses the same terms, exact same terms. This is kind of why we are in the process of trying to come up with some joint lesson plans, so that when kids transition from one of my end of pathways to his end of pathways, that there's some continuity there. All right? And one of the reasons we're doing this, folks, is I really have a goal of making the graphic arts and the video production program of GICA the best program in the state. Okay? That's my goal. Okay? And I would like to get you to come with us, whatever it takes. Okay? All right, so elements. All right, the foundation of good graphic design are the components or parts of a work of art or a design. Simply put, they are the ingredients of art. All right? Take 1 part color, a little pinch of texture, and a whole lot of shape, and the result will be some well-composed graphic design or well-composed video. All right? Elements is a big word because the element of color, the element of texture, the element of the position, the element of the underlying structure. All right? You use the word element to attach to a lot of different terms in graphic design, video production. All right? Lines, and these will start making more sense to you when we start showing the slides. All right? But you need to know these terms, and that's why I put these key terms in that handout. All right, lines in graphic design can be used for a wide range of purposes, such as stressing a word or a phrase, connecting content, or creating patterns and more. And in video, it's very important because from scene to scene, you don't want to be moving your line all over the place because it confuses the viewer. Okay? Color, it's used to generate emotions. Color can define importance. Color can create visual interest. And sometimes color is a unifying and in a branding. Texture relates to the surface of an object. Using texture in graphic design adds depth and a visual interest. This can be applied graphically in the form of a pattern. Is there enough detail in this projection here? Do you see like the scales? In his. Now, if I was to touch the screen, am I going to feel scales? No. But I'm trying to give you the illusion that there's a texture there, right? That there is something, if I touched it, I would feel it. Okay? All right.
Can you see also on there that you can only see the texture in the lit parts of the drawing? You can't see it in the dark part, can you?
No.
So why draw all that in the scene if you can't see it? You're going to show the audience just enough to let them know it's there. You know the dragon's textured all over, but part of the mystery of it is just show you a little bit. It's like a magic trick. You got to hide some parts about to make the mystery, but also if you think it through as an artist, it's not as much work as it looks, because the mystery of it is in the parts of where I'm going to make a lot of darkness and show you just what I want you to see, just like a sleight of hands. If you think of everything that's on the board where it says elements, how many of you guys know how to cook? Something, anything. You know how to make an omelet. How many people know how to make an omelet?
Cereal.
What you need to make an omelet? You got to have an egg. Now, you can put onions and tomatoes and all the other stuff in there if you want to. The list of what's up there is just like you're cooking something. Pick something that you're going to fix. And some of the ingredients there are you got to have it every time. Can't make an omelet without the eggs. But you can make the omelet without the tomatoes. You can make the omelet without the onions. You can make an omelet without some of the other parts. So the combination of these things is how you cook up your design. Does that make sense? So that's what they're talking about when you see texture. Texture is one of those things there, you put just enough of it in there. Don't overdo it. It's like putting too much flavor in something you're going to make. You put just enough to make it work.
All right. And then size in graphic design. Size can convey importance. Size can attract your eye, attract attention, and create contrast. If, like, say in a video or a static design. When I say static design, that's more along like poster design, flyer design, things like that. I can create, just by the use of size, something that is really important, okay, just by the sheer size of it. If I have the President of the United States talking to a congressman, and I make the President of the United States much larger than the congressman, you're going to realize just by his position and size in the design that you think of him as much more important. But if I switch that around, that might confuse the audience, right? If I made the congressman bigger, all right? See, you can create confusion too by size, all right? Shape, there's three basic types of geometric shapes in design: circles, squares, triangles. A lot of times in nature, you'll see leaves and trees. They have like a lot of curves to them and things like that. You can also get very stylized, and you need to be real careful when you create a design and using geometric shapes, because you want to maintain the shape and maintain that part of the design. Space, I tell my students all the time, quit crowding my edges. All right. If you've got a frame or a size that you're dealing with, I don't need everything right on the edge. All right. I need you to use space. White space or empty area is just as important as the area that you fill. And I notice a lot of intro graphic design students have a tendency to want to try to fill the entire space. All right. But you don't need to fill the entire space to get your message across. In fact, space is a good thing. All right, it gives your eye a moment to rest. It makes the things that you put in there more important. Okay, all right, and then value, how light or dark an area looks in a design. All right, everything from the darkest blacks to the brightest whites. Use it creatively to create depth, contrast, and emphasis. And scale, think of scale as size, but it's the size relationships within your design or within your frame. Think about it again. If you have an oak tree and a person standing next to it, and you make the person really big and it's bigger than the oak tree, you know there's something wrong with that scale, right? Okay? All right? So understand, scale is the size relationships within your design.
Look over here and you see the scale between the boy over here and the dragon. Okay? That's kind of giving you an idea. Dragon's bigger than a little cocker spaniel, isn't he? Bigger than a poodle, isn't it? That's part of the idea, is that it's what scale is. It's one object in relationship to the other to kind of give you an image, a picture of it.
All right, color. Hue is just another name for color. All right, if you want to get into it, it's the designer's word for color, because hue just isn't just a color, it's the values within that color. Hue, all right? Saturation is the overall intensity or brightness of a color. Any color that appears dull is referred to as desaturated. Value is the lightness or darkness of the overall color schemes. All right, and then one of the things that you need to be aware of as a graphic designer and also as in video production, colors have a certain meaning to people. All right, now that does change from culture to culture. All right, but overall, color means something. All right, it has an emotional feeling and emotional impact. All right. Now, I was listening to National Public Radio just the other day, and they were talking about why warm colors on the color wheel stimulate the brain more than cool colors. And I was thinking, how in the world does that, how can they figure that out? Well, they've actually discovered that the part of the brain that receives the color information from the eyeballs is actually closer to the distance to the eyeball to that part of the brain was closer than the cooler part of the color spectrum. So it actually takes longer for the nerve ending stimuli to reach that part of your brain, and just that little extra couple of microseconds makes you feel different about colors. That's pretty wild to me. All right, but blue is often associated with security. It's trustworthy, stability, loyalty, wisdom, confidence, trust, friendliness, preservation, perseverance, courage, and science. Green is often associated with wealth, money. It's considered a calming color. It's natural, trees. It's considered an ambitious color, endurance, healing, calm, generosity, natural, completion and protection. Red is a very powerful color. It has a lot of energy, a lot of vigor, leadership. A lot of time people will wear, gentlemen will wear dark suits with a red tie. All right. Courage, passion, activity, joy, and love. Yellow is optimistic, childish, freshness, law, education, arrogance, and friendly. I actually wore this shirt today, yellow, because it's my friendly color. Because I was hoping to make some new friends today. Okay? All right? Okay. All right?
If you look at colors, no matter what you think of him, if you look at Donald Trump and look at what color tie he wears, 99% of the time when you see him, he wears a red tie or a blue tie. That's it.
Yep.
99% of the time, he will wear a solid red tie or a solid blue tie. That's it. And look at the messages he wants you to get.
Okay. And then pink is romantic, feminine, love, beauty. They've actually taken prisons and colored the cells pink, and it calms the prisoners down. All right? They have less reports of violence in those prisons that have been painted pink. And believe it or not, they had to set an NCAA rule, because when you used to go play the University of Tennessee in any kind of sport, all the visitors' locker rooms were painted pink because they wanted all the visiting teams to be real calm and sedate. So enough of the other schools complained about it that the NCAA made a rule that the color scheme that's in the home locker room has to be the same color scheme that's in the visitors' locker room. You think that's stupid? Okay. All right. Orange, cheerful, passion, pleasure, enthusiasm, fascination, creativity, fun, friendly. It's kind of considered a friendly version of red. Black is powerful, mysterious, elegant, sophisticated, functionality. And purple is often associated with royalty, mystery, sophistication, and spirituality. Again, hue is another name for color. If we add white to that color, we're creating a tint. If we're adding black to that color, we're creating a shade. And if we're adding gray to that color, we're creating a tone. And then we have the neutral colors. These are black, white, gray, and beige or brown. Okay? And when you're designing a color scheme and you select certain colors off a color wheel, you do not normally see brown or beige or gray, white, or black. You see a color wheel and those are the colors, and those are more like complementary colors to your designs.
If you looked at the most classic art in the world, like European art, look at Michelangelo's paintings, look at Rubens' paintings, look at Rembrandt's paintings, look at some of the major masters in art. And I will tell you, they use 4 colors. Go back one more, Mr. Neal.
Go back.
They use 4 different colors, and they're not the colors you think. It's that one, that one, that one, and that one. Those are their major colors right there. None of the other ones right there. That's what they use because there is mastery in their image and illusion creation in those 4. That's what they used. Take a really good look sometime, you'll see. That's what they used. Not these and not these. They use a dab of those, but that's the master's selection right there.
All right, and like I said, I'm not going to read the worksheet, but I do want you to take a few minutes, and we're going to kind of brainstorm these words here. If I was to ask you the color of Batman, what colors come to mind? Black and gray, yellow, blue. In some versions of Batman, it's the blue cape and the blue head. Okay. All right. Now, if you notice, just about everybody in here kind of knew that answer, right? So that's a pretty good brand. The color is associated with the Batman character, right? If I was to ask you Spider-Man, what colors come to mind? Red, white, black, blue. All right. Everybody knows that, right? Okay. Successful branding of those colors with the character. If I was to ask you Coca-Cola, red and white or red and silver?
Red, white, black.
Okay.
Coca-Cola, red.
All right. If I said Coke Zero,
Red, white,
black.
I don't drink that.
All right. Now, one of the things to tell you how successful the branding of those colors is with a product is if you go to the Winn-Dixie or any grocery store and you see the Diet Colas for the other brands, do they not match the same color scheme?
They do.
All right. Okay. So they're kind of set the groundwork for a whole industry color coding the drinks. Now that's a pretty powerful position. Now a couple of years ago in Australia, Coca-Cola mixed it up. They started using different colors to represent the different Diet Cokes, Coke Zero, Coca-Cola, you know, that kind of thing. And within months, literally within months, all their competitors in Australia switched over to their color scheme. All right? Yeah. All right? Because Coca-Cola has such a dominant presence in those markets that by changing the color scheme, they were differentiating themselves, and people want to kind of go with the flow and have people know that when they buy Diet Coke or Coke Zero, you know, the color scheme. All right? All right? If I was to ask you the Atlanta Falcons, red, black, white, okay? Y'all say blue after that Super Bowl loss.
Red, white, and black.
Okay. All right, Gicca colors.
Blue, white, black. Blue, white, tan. Blue, white, white.
Blue. Where are you getting blue and white? Huh? Beige? We've done a terrible job of branding our colors. Our colors are gold and green.
Blue, gold, green.
Yeah.
Not the paint on the wall, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So that definitely a signal that we need to do a better job of branding our color.
We'll let the CEO know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Identifying the positioning of the main subject and other focal points in your image is the heart of good composition. We will start with the building blocks where to place objects and focal points to help you get a better balance, shape, and distribution of form within your image and designs. Know your frame and think about where you want to place elements within that frame. So we're going to talk about your frame a little bit. All right? We are dealing with 2 dimensions. width and height. All right. Poster design. There's standard sizes, 11 by 17, 18 by 24, 24 by 36. There's standard size for flyers, 8.5 by 11, 5.5, 8.5. And I'm sure that there's a certain standard ratio for a TV screen.
It's this thing right here. You notice how much this thing right there mimics this over here on this side. Because that's referred to as 16 by 9. That's what you standardly see a movie shot in. If you see it 4 by 3, where it's a little more closer to a square, 4 by 3 would be a little smaller, and that's more of the suggestion of a TV set. Although a lot of your TV sets that you buy now are looking more like movie screens. Right. But classic TV sets were 4 by 3. That's the ratio. And there's one other ratio that you look at a lot, and you really don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. Do you know which one that is? It's closer to you than that. What did you say? It's your cell phone. Your cell phone has a different ratio that you're used to. Some of them are closer to this, and they're moving towards that. But some of your cell phones are like 2 by 3. And that's what the original time with a flip phone was, but now they're moving a little towards making space for movies. But your cell phone has a different, it's called an aspect ratio, which is the same as your framing.
Now, one of the nice things about modern technology and the modern software that you use as designers is when you design something to a certain standard size, when you go to the cloud, whatever, say I design something, and then you want to look at it on your phone, and then you want to look at it on your laptop, and then you want to look at it on your iPad, all right? What happens is, since I've designed that, it'll go to the cloud, and then it'll determine what device is trying to read my file and automatically scale it to fit that device. 20 years ago, if I was designing something, I would have to design it to fit an iPad, fit a TV screen, fit something else, and I would literally have to make a bunch of different designs. Now, with the mathematical formulas this modern software uses, it automatically makes all the adjustments. All right. All right, remember that before you start using these basic techniques, you should always thumbnail and sketch out your frame. All right, you're dealing within a group, discuss the frame and make sure everybody is working off the same sketch. As a designer, you will need to take into consideration size, scale, color, texture, and shape as part of the overall design, and how all those design decisions will need to work together to achieve a better balance and distribution of those elements that fits within your frame and helps deliver the message. I understand today we're dissecting How to Train Your Dragon, and we're going to be primarily focused on color and compositional arrangement of the elements within the animation of the movie. Understand that this is Mr. Neeld's and Mr. Pullen's interpretation of these elements, okay? All right, how many of you have heard of rule of thirds? All right. This is a perfect place to start when thinking of placing objects within your frame. Having subjects that are all centered to add balance and to make dramatic dynamism of the element to further your story or message. The rule of third works by splitting each side of the frame into three equal parts and lengths and horizontal. In other words, I tell them tic-tac-toe it. Tic-tac-toe your frame. Okay? Position your main subject on one of these lines, then use the others for important elements such as the horizon, secondary focal points, strong vertical lines, and other key areas in the grid are the 4 line intersections which give optimal positions for the main focal point. Now, the other day I had a student that asked a very good question. He said, well, it's just a grid pattern. I said, no, grid pattern is a little bit more detailed and a little bit more broken down into a pattern, whereas rule of thirds is a simple tic-tac-toe, and I'm going to show you that right now. All right, so here's our shot. There's our frame. All right. And as you can see, compositionally wise, we've got this dragon jumping out of this molten lava right there on our vertical line. And we have our other characters right near that line. And there's a thing in design called continuance, where people have a tendency to look in the same direction as the characters in an image, or the characters in a frame will look. So they're actually looking at that nice vertical line there and lined up with it. And if you notice the horizontal, the dragon's head is lined up there and their head is lined up there. It's a good way to keep a nice balance in your design. All right? I don't know if Mr. Pullen has any comment on that.
If that was a camera shot, then you probably, one person in the middle, you probably want their eyes right along that line. If they're in the center of the position, it's just one person. Now, if there's two people, line one of them right there, and line the other one right there. And that gives you kind of a sense of balance on how you set up the shot. In our case, you have to put elements where they are because we're not drawing them in. We're not drawing them in, we're shooting them in.
All right, here's another good example of rule of thirds being applied and a little bit of scale. All right. Here's our vertical line. They're very close to our vertical line. All right. She's much larger, so whatever it is, she must have a little bit more importance in this scene. All right. There's that continuance again. He's actually keeping you in the design. All right. And that's another good example of a rule of thirds. Now, another design compositional way is you can use what they call Z-design. All right. Z-design is based on a compositional control. What you probably don't realize is that your eyes are constantly moving in a Z pattern. All right? And if I'm a designer and I know that your eyes are going to travel this way, I can take advantage of that because I kind of know where you're going to be. So I can create a big entry point. Your eye goes real fast, and then it goes real fast this way, but it slows down because we're used to looking from left to right. So it slows down, and this is called your optical center, and then it goes real fast to our exit. And if you've ever noticed, like TV commercials, they always put the logo down in that bottom corner because that's the last thing they want you to see. And here's an ideal Z design, big entry point. And I bet you if I applied the rule of thirds, all right, big entry point, this actually travels down, the sparks and stuff are happening in our optical center, and then we exit the scene. All right? And you're going to see that a lot in kind of medium close-up shots. All right? You'll see that Z design. Okay? All right. Another scene that you'll see a lot of is what they call focal point full frame. It's a simple and strong technique. A single full frame element can produce a simple composition, but due to the sheer size of the element, the viewer is forced to look at the image without any distraction. This type of composition can be very emotional. This type of shot in a video can be very emotional. All right? There's no doubt what the director and the storyteller wants you to feel, right? There's really no distraction. All right? There's that vertical line. If we did the rule of thirds, she's really on that vertical line. All right. Again, focal point, full frame. He's fitting the entire frame, basically. A lot of times in this movie, when they're doing an emotional shot, you'll see this full frame. Okay?
If you want to get some emphasis, too, see how the face is not sitting just straight up? Look at the lines. Right there, the lines are on an angle. His frown is on an angle. And that angle kind of upsets your vision because you look at balance as being something like this. But when your shot is tilted like that, emotionally in your viewer's mind, whoa, something's up. Whoa, something's different. And that's kind of what they're doing. They did that in the same shot before that as this one. They did deliberately will take your camera shot and instead of having everything level, see, it's slanted. That tilt of your camera shot, that tilt of your subject is deliberate because it emotionally offsets what's happening inside your head.
Adds interest, you know? if you ever taken photographs, people standing straight in front of you, that's not a very interesting photograph, but sometimes if you tilt the camera a little bit, you can create a little bit different angle. All right. One of the things when I was taking photography in college, my photography teacher said, if you think you're close, take another step closer, and always take a ladder with you on a photo shoot, because you could get some really nice angles that make your photographs a little different than just standing in front of somebody and squaring them up and taking a picture. All right? That's what I tell my students when you go out and photograph. I don't want the same, get down on your knees, lay down on the ground, take the ladder with you, get some unique angles. Okay? All right, leading line, what we're going to do is we're going to get through these, while she's popping some more popcorn, we're going to get through this part before, and then we'll take a break when we get to color. Okay? All right, so we're going to be talking about leading lines and obstacles. Think about how your objects and elements interact within your frame. These connections are sometimes obvious and literal, such as a line or an object linking two areas of the frame. But you could also be more, what's that word? Ephemeral. That's more of an emotional or more of a gut reaction, quick reaction, such as using similar shapes or subjects to add to the story. It can also involve using two strikingly different subjects or colors to create contrast, to add impact or even conflict to a narrative. And I tell my students, conflict is not a bad thing in design, because conflict adds interest. All right? It's kind of like the old story of fire and ice. All right? There's always a superhero, and if he's got fire, his arch nemesis is ice. All right? If the superhero is ice, guess what? His arch nemesis is fire. All right? When thinking about these connections and contrast, it's also worth considering how we read an image. In Western culture, most people read from left to right, so it often corresponds to the way we tend to look at images. This means a distribution of elements from the frame from left to right is normally more pleasing to Western cultures, all right, than right to left. While I was researching on creating this PowerPoint, there was a YouTube video that I watched on a Japanese director. I guess he kind of the Steven Spielberg of Japanese directors. And when I was watching his clips from his movies, it looked like chaos to me. All right? But in Japanese culture, the way they read is from right to left. It made perfectly, when I started looking at it from the prospect of right to left movement instead of left to right movement, the scenes made more sense to me. All right? Now here's an excellent example of taking a line from one frame to the next. Our hero, he's searching for the dragon that he's shot the net at. And as you can see, he's looking down at a map, and all of a sudden he sees this tree that's been knocked over. And see the curve. Now what's neat about this scene is it immediately goes into the next scene and swoops up, and then we have this obstacle right here. In other words, the line doesn't go off our screen. It basically stops you, because we want to keep you in the movie. We want to keep you in the frame. All right? So basically our line moves like that, and if I was to say that a dragon moves, it's that swooshing feel right there. All right? Here's the line. All right? She is quite literally jumping over, and they've basically split the screen in half. This is all well lit. This is real dark to give a sense of depth. And if you want to get into the psychology of the scene, she is literally overcoming her fear of the dragon, and she's literally jumping over an obstacle, both physically and mentally, when dealing with the dragon. But we won't dissect this movie along psychology. All right, here's another example of the line. There's the line. And then here is our obstacle, this blank spot. This is the good use of space, empty area. Faces are also a very good obstacle. People have a tendency to stop and look at a face. So here's our line, our obstacle, our stopping point, and then our line continues. And when we get to showing some of these scenes, all right, this is a good scene, and they literally bounce back and forth during this conversation along that line using their faces, all right? But you'll notice every single scene, and it lasts a good 2 minutes, they follow that line very well. Now, this was a scene that I thought was particularly interesting because the scene starts out with the friend of the hero knocking on his door, and then he walks off the frame, but the camera starts scrolling this way, maintains that line, and then it pauses. The hero jumps out, and then he runs off the screen. So that's a perfectly good horizontal line, and then very next scene, big focal point, and then it's a vertical line. The image starts scrolling down. And then it gets to the fire pit here, and that's our obstacle. That stops the eye from going off the screen. And I thought it was a good way to keep the viewer's attention, interest, and not just one long line like that. I thought that was very well done. All right, while using basic position and placement of elements within the frame is important, there's only one part of improving our composition. Compositions could look very flat unless we try to add some techniques to make it feel like there's depth to it. We can use our leading line and compositional awareness. All right, leading lines relies on shapes, lines, curves, and the subject to draw the viewer into the frame. Compositional awareness uses tones or colors that become lighter and the reduction of contrast to make objects appear further and farther away. And if you look, here's this gray. What is it when we're adding gray and white? Tone, tints. All right, but doesn't that give a sense of depth? Okay. Here we got these colors and then this tints in here. All right, and then what's nice about this one, here's an oversaturation of the yellowish white into this pink and purple, and it gives a sense of depth. And if you look, there's our line, and there's our stopping point. And the dragon flies in on our line, and then the scene, when it gets to about right there, it cuts. All right, so it's keeping you in the frame by our line and our stopping point, or our obstacle. One of the most powerful tools that a designer has in the toolbox in storytelling and delivering a message is color. Now, the other day, one of my advanced students, I told her when I typeset this, the next day when I re-looked at it, I started thinking as a graphic designer, typography to me is the most powerful tool. But as a movie, somebody that deals with movies, moving pictures, I would think color would probably be more important. All right? So one of the things we need to do is understand what color does. Color draws the viewer's attention and helps move the viewer's eye within the frame. Color creates informational relationships. Color can evoke a mood or an emotion, and color can communicate a message. And if you were to look at a color wheel, it's primarily broken down into warm and cool colors. Warm colors are considered very active. Cool colors are considered very passive. Warm colors advance in a design. In other words, they feel like they're jumping off the page. Cool colors seem to recede or seem to add depth to a page. All right. Some color schemes that you could possibly choose for your design is monochromatic. That's the use of a single color, using shade, tones, and tints. Complementary colors are two colors that are exactly opposite each other on the color wheel. Split complementary, you take a complementary color scheme, and then one is the primary color, and then you have the two secondary colors. And then one is analogous, that's three colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Come on in. All right, and then tetradic is a kind of a square. You're basically dealing with two complementary color schemes. All right, and those are all decisions you have to make to fit the mood, the feel, the message that you're trying to convey in your design. All right. If you look here, the use of color frames this shot, and this oversaturation of the orange and yellow here draws the eye. And Mr. Pullen, when we were working on this together, he pointed out that that was a complementary color scheme. That was this kind of this purple and then gold. All right, that's a complementary color scheme. And then when you see the movement, the scene starts here, and then the camera goes up like that, and it follows this line, this oversaturation of color, to guide the viewer's eye. And then another example of just color and the total absence of color is this scene where a few moments before the hero is sitting up here listening to a bunch of people talk around a campfire, and then he sneaks off and he literally walks down these steps into total blackness, total devoid of color, and then the female character spots him leaving and then looks. So the very use of color, and if you were to break that down into the rule of thirds, that's probably that vertical line in the rule of thirds. Okay? All right? And then two, here's this framing of a color. You've got this oversaturation of the yellows and reds, and then you've got this framing of the color, and then the movement within that scene, and that movement of that color is what keeps the audience focused into the center of the design. Now we're going to talk about the relationships of color. Here's the hero. Notice what color he's brown, right? What's the symbolism of brown?
Like a
Pure, down to earth. Nature. All right? That kind of defines that character, doesn't it? All right? And if you'll notice in this movie, she's the totally different color scheme than all the other characters. All right? And she has blonde hair. What's blonde?
like a
Friendly, yellowish, friendly color. All right? A lot of times in cartoon movies, the heroine will have blonde hair, right? And the villainess has black hair. All right? All right. What's the color symbolism of black?
like a mysterious.
Mysterious, powerful.
Right.
All right. Okay. So here's our dragon. That dragon might not have worked quite as well if he was red. All right.
He should have been purple.
Think he'd been in purple? We're going to get to that in just a second. I'm going to show you how purple plays an important role in this movie. All right. This character's kind of cool. All right. He's red and green. What kind of color system is that? Complementary. Because red's exactly opposite of the green, right? And if you think about this character, he's the most conflicted character in this movie. Because he's powerful, but the thing is, at the start of the movie, he hates dragons. By the end of the movies, he's totally opposite, right? Okay? He's like the complementary color scheme. Best friend, right? Yellow. What color is that? Friendly color. His blonde hair, friendly color. All right? This guy, blonde hair. All right? These browns, down to earth, right? Okay? Now, getting back to him for a second, one of the things that we noticed, Maddie, one of Mr. Pullen's advanced students, we were watching it, and he actually looked for this. When in the movie, there's certain scenes where he's angry, and that beard actually looks like it's on fire. The reflection of it, the way it moves, it looks like he's on fire. But then when he's talking to his son, or in a scene where he's talking with his friends, the scenes are very subdued. His beard barely moves, and it's more of a brownish color. All right? So when he's angry and fired up, it's red. All right? There's an oversaturation of red. But when he's calm, it's a much more subdued brown color. Now, I think this is the guy and this is the girl. They're twins. But again, the blonde hair, the friendly, nice contrast because they very seldom look like they're content in the movie. They always look like they're angry. All right? Now, this character here, and I've watched this movie now for the last week and a half about 15 times. All right? I kind of enjoyed it the first 5, but when it started getting to about the 15th time, you know, it starts getting a little boring because I've seen these scenes. But one of the things I noticed about him, he's almost a third-tier character. He has very little camera time. And I think one of the stories I've heard once before that in movie making, you have to have camera time to start building an emotion towards that character. If you don't have enough camera time with that character, nobody cares if he dies, lives, whatever happens to him. But he becomes almost a third-tier character. He just pops in and out a few times. Look at him. His colors are all almost forgettable, right? Okay? All right? Now, when you look at these dragons, remember when we were talking about cute or angry in your thumbnailing? Here's our cutesy stuff, right? The eyes. But look at the colors they use, yellow and orange. Those are friendly colors, right? All right? Blue, they're very pastel, very, very subdued color schemes. All right? Because they really didn't want these dragons, even though they're drawn childlike, to be aggressive looking. So they use very laid-back pastel colors. All right? Even though they're different colors, they're very laid back. And again, they used a lot of orange and yellows, which are very friendly colors, and the greens. Now here's some pretty good scenes. Again, we've got this romantic scene. The hero and his heroine is up here riding on the back of the dragon. And the scene has a lot of pinks and yellows in it. All right? Now, here's the danger. Look at all that red. All right? Now, I got some kid go, oh, it's lava. It's supposed to be red. Yeah, but they could have set that scene in something totally different than a lava pit. All right? And I always think of that movie, 101 Dalmatians, when Cruella de Vil is in her bedroom and she's on the phone. Her bedroom is just all red. All right? All right? Very angry colors. And a lot of times when she appears in the movie, it's very, very red. A lot of reds around her and everything. All right? But we're not dissecting that movie. We're dissecting this one. All right? Now, there's another scene. Notice the purple. A lot of blues and purples in this scene here. All right? Very heroic scene, right? Purple's associated with heroics, right? Royalty. All right? All right, and then when this character is introduced into the movie, she throws this little bucket of water, and there's this giant explosion of red and yellow, and she starts walking towards the camera. All right, real slow and sexy like. All right, what do you think the feeling they're trying to convey? She's hot. All right, she's cute. All right, she's fine. All right, okay. That's the emotion that they're trying to convey. I can't, you know, that's what it is. All right. Now this scene right here, you ought to find interesting. This scene starts out as a monochromatic green. See all that green? And then as the two characters start interacting with each other, you start seeing the introduction of purple. And then as the scene gets closer and closer to the end, he's actually totally surrounded in purple right here. And then look at the highlights now. See the purple? Right? Whereas the scene started out black and white. But the slow introduction of purple shows that there's a connection. That purple color starts tying those two characters together, right? And then also, too, purple represents the royalty, right? The seriousness, all right? Okay? All right? So there's a good use of the introduction of purple to create a relationship, to create a mood, to create, and it's just a slow transition right there. Now that's the PowerPoint. All right? All right, so let's take a look at some video. All right. Y'all seen the digital display that's outside my room, right? And y'all seen the digital display in the hallway there. The screen. The screen. All right. One of the things that when I first, my background is static images. It's designing something like posters, books, things like that. It's things that don't move. All right. And so when we first got that, I went with what I knew. We would design PowerPoint slides that just transitioned, and it just wasn't giving me the excitement that I wanted to feel. All right? So then I went to Mr. Pullen's class, and I said, if I give you a bunch of photographs, can you make them into a movie, add a little sound to it, and go from there? And he did, and they did a wonderful job, but when I popped it up on the screen, I started going, well, I could do that with a PowerPoint. All I got to do is make the transitions go faster. You know, I'm not getting movement. And so what happened is I went to Mr. Pullen and said, this is the problem. What am I doing wrong? And he goes, oh, you need movement. All right? You need things to move within your frame. All right? And I thought this was a nice scene here. So what happens is usually you see this logo, it's pretty static. But go ahead and play it. There's movement. Just play it. All right? There's an excitement to that. It's just not a static image of a logo sitting there. There's movement. That's what we need to look for. All right? All right, remember that scene? We're going through, now watch how it's framing. We're passing through the saturation of light on either side of the frame. Now it's moving us up the hill. All right, let's go ahead and go to the scene 254. There you go. Right there. Boom. See that flame? A lot of times, like I said, when his blood's up or his everything, the scenes are very use the use of flames very well. All right. And here she comes. Boom. That's how Mr. Neeld walks sometimes. Right, there's her buddies. Okay, all right. Let's go on. Just keep going. Get to 432 here in just a sec. There you go. All right, remember that Z design? Okay. All right, go to clip 432 and pause it. I guarantee you that's the rule of thirds right there. Okay, hit play. What design's that? Z design. Okay, keep going. All right, now let's go all the way to scene 1230. You can see how they pause it, how the background's all washed out in gray. to give that sense of depth. Okay? All right, there's almost an oversaturation of the pink and red in him. And then pause it. Frame. This is a nice frame. I guarantee you this is a rule of thirds, but they're using this as a frame. All right? And he doesn't want, they cut to the scene before he becomes unfocusable. There's our line. Remember our line? And look how this... All right. All right, go to clip. Well, here, wait, just again, using that saturation, how they created the sense of depth, and how the camera's moving in. All right. Let's go to scene 1230. Oh, that's where we're at on this one. Excuse me. Go to 1545. Again, look at how his beard feels like all fiery and stuff because he's about to have an argument with his son. It even moves like fire. I guarantee you they sat down in a production meeting and were thinking this scene out, you know, how they're going to do that scene. And I know he was like, man, I want this guy to feel fiery. I want him to feel fired up. I want the audience to feel that. All right? And when the director's saying that, then there's some guy over there sketching away. Thumbnails. Okay? All right. Go to scene 2254. All right. Look how they're starting to use a lot of yellows. Because this is where they're supposed to feel comfortable. This is supposed to where they're sitting around a fire having a friendly conversation. See the use of yellows, the oversaturation of yellow. All right, now this is a scene, and I don't know, I think Mr. Pullen will agree with me. It's going to start here at 24:15 and go to 25:18. Just let it keep going. And you know, sometimes you have to make decisions based on budget, and sometimes you have to move a story forward real quick, or at least try to squeeze more of your story into a 2-hour picture. I guarantee you, this scene right here. Somebody made a very good decision on how to save on the budget and tell a whole lot of story. We're about there. See that focal point of the color? All right. Framed, I guarantee that's about a rule of thirds. But see these simple animations? He's speaking. He's telling a whole lot of story there for very little money. Where at? What at?
If you rewind it a couple seconds.
Rewind it a few seconds. Okay. Look at this goof. That guy reminds me of Jack Black. All right, so you're saying some purple starts being introduced here?
If you wait till the lights go down and you look at the text, it's like the purple text.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Probably. That would probably be a good connection. Mystery.
With the purple, if you look on a color wheel and you see purple and you see yellow, they're opposite each other. So they're going to, it's going to be right there like that. That's going to be the maximum contrast you'll get out of those two colors. So if the,
Yeah,
if the,
you're right. It does look kind of purple, doesn't
yeah,
it?
it's opposites on a color wheel. They're complements.
But I think they chose purple because of the
very-
mystery of
very
what they're
deliberate.
trying to tell in the story.
Very deliberate.
Yeah. Yeah, some reds. All right. Because he's reading very violent descriptions. But again, this kind of animation compared to the full-blown animation of drawing characters, movement and stuff, I guarantee you somebody saved a bunch of money in that scene. You start getting a little bit of movement in it. But yeah, there's a lot of purple in that. I didn't notice that before. But I think you would agree with me. I think they probably saved a bunch of money in that scene.
That's probably where they use the storyboard and let the storyboard be the movie.
Yeah,
They didn't have to animate.
exactly
Just let the
right.
storyboard be the movie.
All right, and then go to scene 2845. Again, that color, she's the only character that has this multi-layered color. All right, here's that scene. The purple in the shield, the green, monochromatic color scheme, all that green. See how they start introducing the purple in the shadowing? All right, it's 10.